Hello everyone and welcome to this week's board on opening theory. This board is also from the Deception and Countermeasures in the Xiangqi opening by Master Wenqing and Grandmaster Zhang. This is one of the best books on opening theory that has been published in China. In this board and the few next few boards, I will be focusing on unorthodox counters and openings in Xiangqi. And for this first board, if you have read the theory that I've put in the slides at the beginning of the video, we will be introducing the central cannon versus the tandem cannon defense. So without further ado, let us see what the authors had for us. Central cannon. Now, usually, red would threaten to attack the central pawn, and black would usually find ways of defending the central pawn. Another less commonly used method would be simply to forego the central pawn and consolidate the defense on the central file as a counter. But in today's board, black will counter with c8 plus 1 as a unorthodox counter, whereby this cannon will protect this pawn, the central pawn, in this manner. Now, this is very unusual. For beginners, if red plays c2 equals to 5, the cannon on the same side of the board, or the ipsilateral cannon, is used to play c8 plus 1. Now, it would not be a good idea for black to play c2 plus 1, because if this were done, black would not be able to play c8 equals to 2 later on, as will be seen, or the cannon will simply capture it. So again, black would play the cannon. Red would usually develop his right horse as a matter of habit with h2 plus 3, and black will continue with c2 equals to 8 to put the cannons in tandem. Now, this move is very important because it would prevent red from developing his right chariot as a foul chariot. Now, again, as red would now cannot develop his chariot, this slow down the tempo of red's attack. Now, usually, in the ancient manuals, h8 plus 7 would be played, as black would try to find development on this flank, since the black cannon would now discourage red from playing r1 equals to 2. Now, there are two variations that were played. This is one common way, the other will be r1 plus 1. r1 plus 1, whereby black will develop his chariot as a rank chariot, since developing it as a foul chariot is not possible. So we shall focus on the first variation, h8 plus 7. Black continue to develop material on his right flank. And in the ancient manual, it was given that red would try to immediately launch an attack on the central file. Black would consolidate his defense. Red would go for the central link houses. And black would go develop his right chariot. And red would counter with c8 equals to 7. It would not be a good idea to play r9 equals to 8 now, or the black chariot can advance and there will be limited space for these two pieces. Black continues to fortify his riverbank and discourage black from advancing the pawn. And in the ancient manual, r1 plus 1 was also given, whereby this is usually done in situations whereby red would attack from the central file. The presence of a rank chariot, would allow red to push his pawn and horses forward later on. However, in this situation, this would be an error in direction of the attack, as mentioned by the authors. If red wanted to develop his chariots as a rank chariot, r9 plus 1 would have been the better choice. The reason for this is because black had already concentrated quite a bit of material on preparing to attack this flank. If the chariot were left here, he could serve many defensive purposes and discourage black from attacking. So r9+1 would have been the better choice in this situation. And since the the red chariot was prepared to go, black would now play p9+1. Now this is a very important tactical combination with the Tandem Cannon Defense. By the way, this defense is also called the left tandem cannons in books because the cannons will now be linked, put in tandem on the left side of the board on black side. So p9+1, and since red had already played the rank chariot, black will now first fortify his defense, and red will try to prevent the pawn from advancing. Now this is a rather empty move. This is a very empty move because the position of the red chariot is not ideal, and black will exploit this poor positioning of the red chariot later on. Instead, p5+1 is advocated if red insisted on attacking in this manner. And the red horse will now cross the river and threaten to capture the black cannon, but more importantly, red will be prepared to sacrifice this horse to trade for two of the enemy elephants and go for a very vicious attack. Red will have the offensive and the advantage at this point in time. So p5+1 will be advocated and not r4+3, which the chariot at this point in time will not be able to do much. Black will continue with h8+9, p9+1, and as mentioned earlier, the horse will now threaten to capture the red chariot. So on this file, there will be not many good places for the chariot to move. It cannot advance to these two intersections as they are covered by the chariot and horse, and neither can it advance to the pale corner where the advisor would have protected against that. So usually we would advance r4+4, and it would not be a good idea to retreat as it will result in loss of tempo. Now, as mentioned earlier, black would continue to push his pawn across the river. This is a very fundamental tactical combination when using the Tandem Cannon's defense. Now, capturing the pawn would seem inexpedient. So the better move in this situation, as recommended by the authors, would be to continue to push p5+1 and go for the attack. Capturing the pawn, and red would immediately target the elephant on the bottom rank. Now this is another very commonly used tactical combination by the Tandem Cannon's defense. And red, in the ancient manual, e3+1 was played. Now this is a very weak move because it would only make the king more vulnerable. Again, the authors recommended p5+1 to charge the central pawn forward to attack in this situation. So the black horse will now join the attack, and because the elephant had been moved and this chariot was now blocking the elephant from protecting the cannon, the black horse was now threatening to capture the cannon. Now in the ancient manual, red decided to retreat his chariot to threaten the black horse instead of moving the chariot away, because if he did, black would gladly trade his horse for the cannon, and since the main engine behind red's attack would be this central cannon, red's attack would be nullified and it would be black's turn to attack. So this is not a good advancing the chariot is not a good idea, and red was forced to retreat his chariot. So black would protect the horse and then dislodge the pesky chariot away. Now red's attack would seem very devastating, but there will be nothing. There will be nothing to fear by black. A check, and instead of capturing the central pawn, a central cannon, black decided to sacrifice his material with this move. Now, at this point in time, there were already 1, 2, 3, 4 major pieces that were storming this flank. So by sacrificing the elephant, black will start his final assault. Check, and force red to raise the advisor. K5 plus 1 cannot be played. A check, and black and red will lose the chariot and the game. So that is why the king must move. But as can be seen, black would now be the red king will now be placed in a very vulnerable position. A check, capturing the advisor, retreating the cannon for a check, and the only move that is possible would be a5 minus 6, a check, and checkmate. So this was variation, one of the variations in the strategic considerations and ancient manual that discuss this opening this position. So a short recap: tandem cannons, left tandem cannons, red attacks from the center, and mistake, not advisable to play r1 plus 1, and black could often be choose to push b9 plus 1 to allow for development of the horse and also for development of the chariot along the edge files. Now this tactical combination is very unique. An empty move by red, losing tempo, and threatening to capture the red chariot, forcing it to move again. And again, the black chariot was now free to attack the bottom rank. And red made another mistake with e3 plus 1, hoping to save his cannon and prevent capture. Unfortunately, the black horse was now in place for attack, forcing it back, protecting the horse, and dislodging the red chariot, a trade of material, and a sacrificing the horse for attack. A check, checkmate. So this is the first variation that the authors presented. This is also a variation from the ancient manual, strategic considerations. Now, this was in variation A, h8 plus 7 was discussed. In variation B, red will develop his red chariot as a ranked chariot very early in the game. Now, on the surface, this would seem to be a natural thing to do since developing it as r1 plus 2 was not viable. Now, at this time, there are two major sub-variations that were discussed. The first would be r1 plus 2, the second would be p9 plus 1. Now, let us examine r1 plus 2. Now, with this move, black was prepared to storm this flank and even sacrifice his horse as need be. So, red tried to be aggressive with r1 equals to 6, whereby he hoped to get in the position whereby both colors were attacking and he would have the advantage by virtue of the first move advantage. Now, if r1 equals to 4 were played, there would be a more steadfast approach to the game. So r1, since red played r1 equals to 6, black would do likewise. And red will try to attack very aggressively by charging the chariot across the river and preparing to play r6 equals to 8 to threaten the horse. Now, under most circumstances, black would move the horse away, but in this variation, given an ancient manual, black advanced the edge pawn and chose to sacrifice the horse. actually there was no need to do so. Black could have simply played h2 plus 3 before pushing the pawn forward. And red will seize the opportunity to lock in the black horse. And black is prepared to sacrifice the horse. And in the ancient manual, red captured the horse in this manner, thinking that he would also have an attack on this bottom rank. However, this is not a good move. There were two other variations that were discussed. The first would be p1 plus 1, and the next would be r8 plus 1. If p1 plus 1 were played, black would continue his assault on this flank. And again, red will capture the horse as given in the ancient manual. But again, this is not a good idea because never be in a rush to capture material that cannot run away. Instead, red should have played c5 equals to 6 as a prophylactic measure so that he could link the elephants up and provide some formidable defense against black's attack on his right flank. And since red did not do so, black will continue to attack the bottom rank. And in this variation, black would attack in this manner. This would block the elephant from retreating to the bottom rank. And red will try to move his cannon away, preparing to play e7 plus 5 to link his cannons. But red, it would be already too late as black would play c8 equals to 7. And instead of attacking the bottom rank, black would attack in this manner. Now, the main reason for the cannon attacking the third rank will be seen now when black advanced the chariot to the third rank. Black was now ready to use his chariot to capture the central pawn, which red cannot use the advisor to capture, or it will be a check. But if the horse were used, the palace would be congested. And if red tried to move his cannon king to safety, black would simply play r6 plus 1 for the checkmate. Now let us backtrack a little bit. When black played c8 equals to 6, red had to defend with e7 plus 5. That was because to prevent the spotted cannon checkmate, and that is why black would advance his chariot to block the elephant again, and black would now threaten to checkmate with c7 plus 1. And that is why the king had to move. I forgot to explain this portion, sorry. So p1 plus 1 is not a good idea. Neither would capturing the chariot with the red capture the black horse with the red chariot be a good idea. The moves that were given in the ancient manual were black would advance the pawn, and black would defend in this manner to prevent the cannon from advancing. This is a very needed move. Red would protect the cannon in this manner. The pawn would now start to wreak havoc, capturing a pawn, threatening to capture the horse, and red will try to buy some time with r9 equals to 6, threatening a checkmate. 6 plus 5, and red would retreat the horse, preparing to protect it from being captured. And the moves ended here in this variation. At this point in time, red would have the material advantage and overall advantage, and that was why it would appear that black's opening would be suffice. So this would be the better move for red in this situation. However, there's still many details. In the main line, c8 plus 7 was played. Red will protect his, will link the elephants up. Rank chariot, more defense. By playing this move, red will be prepared to play perhaps to advance his chariot over here to go for the cutting checkmate. Shoo the chariot away to prevent the throat cutting checkmate. But red sacrificed the chariot in this manner. Now this is a very aggressive move. Another possibility would simply be to play r8 minus 1. A check, capturing the chariot and threatening the cannon. And red would gain back lost material, capturing the cannon, retreating the cannon. Now at this point in time, red will continue to attack. It will seem unnecessary for red to make this move because red will now have the obvious advantage in this situation. So in this position, again black will try to trade away the chariots, which red refused. Now this is another very controversial decision by red. Instead, it was advocated since red had the supreme material advantage, it would have been better for him to trade the chariots away, as red would still have one cannon and two horses and a few pawns going to the end game. And black will gain back lost material, and it will be a nearly even situation for both colors. Now this will be the fifth variation. So in the second variation whereby red played r1 plus 1, in the first variation black would attack with r1 plus 2, but both variations that were given, or the moves that were given in this variation, would suggest that red would be able to fend off any potential black attack. However, the recommended move in this situation would be p9 plus 1, and it would be an entirely different story. So h8 plus 7. Again, black will continue developing his left flank and forego his right flank. Now in this variation, red would continue with r1 equals to 6. Now this seemed to be the natural thing to do when the central cannon is pit against greenhouse defense or sandwich house defense, whereby red would try to push the pawn forward and use his chariot to develop his pawn and horses later on for attack. Now, unfortunately, when facing the Tandem Cannon Defense, this would not be a good idea, as it would be out of sync, and with this move instead, it was suggested that red could play r9 equals to 8 since the horse had moved, whereby red would try to buy some valuable time developing his left flank before black can do so. So for example, if black continue to attack, p3 plus 1 would be a nice prophylactic move. Black would have to develop his right flank. If he did not and continue with r1 equals to 8, red could simply advance his cannon over here to prevent development of this chariot. Now this is also a very powerful move because once this move was made, black cannot move his horse, or the cannon will simply destroy the black cannon over here and also threaten the black horse and the chariot at the same time. For example, now this will be a cannon fork, and black would lose material as now both his horse and chariot was still under attack. So this is why r1 plus 2 is not a good idea, and black would have to play h2 plus 3, and red would attack with p7 plus 1. And at this point in time, I can see that black has the initiative. So that is why r9 plus 8 would have been better, but instead red chose to play r1 equals to 6. Black will continue his aggression, and black will do likewise. However, this would not be a good idea since black had already mastered some material over the left flank, and red's right flank was simply very empty. Again, pushing the pawn forward, trading pawns. And once the chariot was out, red would be in trouble. But unfortunately, red was simply too greedy to gain back material. And black would attack, sacrifice his horse, and attack in this manner. And this is a very powerful move and a critical portion of his plans. And now the black horse will take the opportunity to do trouble. Now, as the black horse was threatening to capture the red horse, red decided to defend in this manner. However, would h7 minus 5 have been better? The answer would be a resounding no, because now black will go for the elbow horse checkmate, forcing the cannon to retreat, and black will continue to sacrifice his horse and prepare to attack, which red will have to prevent by with this move. And red will develop his chariot to this red file, preparing to attack the elephant's eye and wreak havoc. So red will have a hard time trying to deal with this situation. So h7 plus 5 is not as good as e3 plus 5, h3 minus 5, sorry. And black would take the opportunity to capture the elephants to make way for attack with his cannon. This was the move. Red thought that he would gain material by threatening to capture the chariot and also gaining an empty headhunter cannon in the process, but this was wishful thinking on his part. Black would simply capture the cannon. The red cannon cannot capture the black chariot, otherwise this would be an immediate checkmate. So that is why black would try to shadow the cannon, but this will not be the end of black's attack. The horse will not advance, preparing to go for the elbow horse checkmate. The horse cannot capture the black horse, or this will be a check. And red would have to defend in this manner. And lo and behold, black would now capture the red horse and still threaten to capture still threaten to go for the elbow horse checkmate. Again, the horse cannot move, or this would be a check by black. So red tries to defend in this manner, and seeing that this has happened, black will simply trade material, protect the cannon in this manner. Now this will set black up for a discovered attack. Red will try to defend, a check, and at this point in time, suddenly black will pull out a discovered attack. Now when the two cannons are now on the central rank, black will be prepared to play minus c plus 5, or minus c plus 4, to capture the red pawn for the checkmate. Now I'll show you. For example, if red captured it, this will be a checkmate because the elephant cannot move to the central file. So this is checkmate, and that is why once this position was reached, there will be nothing that red can do except maybe to protect the pawn with, say, like 6 plus 2, but in the process of doing so, he will lose his red chariot, and just within a few moves, black will now have 5 major pieces versus red's 2 major pieces, and this will be a foregone conclusion. So that is why once this position was reached, it will be basically black's game. So this will be variation BB. A short recap. In the first variation, the Tandem Cannon Defense, red would develop his left horse as a proper horse to attack. In the second variation, red would develop his right chariot as a rank chariot, since developing it as a foul chariot would not be possible anymore. There are two variations. Two sub-variations, sorry. The first would be R1 plus 1, which would not be a good idea, as red would still be able to command the initiative. As for black, the better suggested counter would be to play P1 plus 1. P9 plus 1 to develop his material from the edge file. And this will lead to this position. Now, as can be seen on the surface, this would seem to be a viable counter by black. However, contemporary experts have come up with many different ways to bust black's counter, and they will be presented in the next part. But for the time being, it is important that we learn from this part, from black's tactical combinations. One very unique tactical combination will be to attack from the flank. So this is quite a interesting method of attack, and which can sometimes lead to used in actual play to lead to advantageous situation. Sometimes in actual matches, although very rarely seen, black will use this counter against opponents which are very inexperienced in the opening phase. But as for this board, perhaps the take-home message that the authors would want us to know is that unorthodox counters, although they are called unorthodox counters, they still have many different tactical combinations or possibilities that we can learn from, and we have to learn how to deal with these unorthodox combinations in order to improve our Xiangqi. I hope you like the work that I've been doing. If you do, please subscribe to my channel, and I'll be making the next video that will discuss this opening again, but how contemporary experts have busted it open. So have a good weekend ahead, and please remember to hit the subscribe button. Thank you.